Hey, do you teach yoga? Have you ever trained to lead yoga classes, to be a yoga therapist? Have you ever owned a yoga studio? Maybe even just wondered what it was like for the women and men up there in front of the room on their mats, leading you through endless Surya Namaskars, down dogs, and pranayamas galore? Well, these are their stories, and mine. I'm Rebecca Sebastian, a 20-year yoga teacher, 10-year yoga therapist, yoga studio owner, and co-founder of a yoga-focused nonprofit. I've done a lot in the yoga world over the last 20 years, pretty much everything except had a water cooler. You know, a place to share stories, talk about struggles, successes, and find other people who do the same thing that I do. Welcome to Working in Yoga, a podcast and substitute water cooler for yoga folks to connect and build community, to share our unique profession, our challenges, and our journeys with the world.
Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. This week I have an interview with my friend Kellie Adkins. Kellie and I talk about yoga organizations, the International Association of Yoga Therapists, or C-IAYT specifically, and also we kind of dive into AI tools in relation to yoga. So I know I did a series on AI and yoga a couple years ago, and this podcast is actually a really nice follow-up to that series. We also talk a bit about how people find us and our services as yoga professionals, and Kellie is rethinking that paradigm for us. Now, before we get started, though, if you could do me a solid and like, follow, or subscribe to the podcast from wherever you're listening, I would be so grateful. And if you're following my writing, I just published a new article about how we deserved better in the yoga industry than what we got. And you can find that on my website, www.thesunlightexperience.com/inside yoga blog. Okay. So Kellie did some interesting digging into the 990s of the International Association of Yoga Therapists, so I definitely don't want to hold up this conversation. Let's get into it with Kellie Adkins. Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. Okay, I have my friend Kellie Adkins on the podcast today. We are going to have such a good conversation. I already know from our little pre-chat. So Kellie, will you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Yes, thank you so much for the invitation first, Rebecca. I'm really happy to be here. So I'm Kellie Adkins. I'm the founder of the Wisdom Method, formerly called the Wisdom Method School of Yoga. We've rebranded this year as the Wisdom Method Institute to really support the vision of where I would like to see yoga go. And I call my brand of yoga the Wisdom Method because it marries the wisdom traditions with the scientific method. And so it is less a style of yoga than it is an evolution of how we practice yoga and how we speak about yoga in terms of preventive care, preventing comorbidities, behavioral health. So that's what I do in the yoga world. I also am a coach over at kellieadkins.com, and there I share the Wisdom Method framework, but in a coaching capacity. Primarily work with nonprofit organizations, but also small business owners in the healing and wellness space.
Okay, so immediately it's going to be a big question because you were like, where I see the yoga space to go? Where do you see the yoga space going? Are we following you? Fix us, Kellie.
Yeah, I don't know. And so firstly, I became a yoga therapist in 2007 at the same time that I was in a very rigorous nutritional neuroscience PhD track. And I, at that point, had a decision to make if I was going to stay in academia, get my PhD, do all of this stuff, or if I was going to use everything I knew about preventive care, behavior change coaching, empowerment, self-efficacy, and yoga therapy to go in a different direction. And so I zagged instead of a zig, right? And where that took me was on this. So again, the landscape was 2007. Yoga therapy was like a thing, but it was not a big thing, right? Yoga, even in my hometown, when I opened my studio, I would get phone calls from people asking what kind of frozen yogurt I sold. So there was
Really? Yes.
This is just for context, right?
Yeah.
So super small town, rural teacher, trying just to live the missionary lifestyle of preventive care,
Totally.
behavioral health, nutrition, coaching, you know? And so for me, a lot of it was like that was wrapped up in what I did. I taught nutrition because I had a degree in nutrition and coaching, and I did these wellness modules, etc. And the yoga was like also something I did, you know, but it
Yeah.
wasn't the core of my identity. However, as yoga therapy started to kind of come into itself and be distinguished from yoga, you may remember like the big hoopla about yoga injuries and how people were getting injured so much, right?
Yeah. William J. Broad's book. Yes.
Yes, and I was a former Ashtangi who taught therapeutic yoga
Yeah.
within the context of the Ashtanga Vinyasa tradition, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was not the most popular teacher in the crowd, right? Like I remember being like literally breaking people's hearts in anatomy classes when they're like, "But isn't your foot supposed to be like this?" And I'm like, "But what does your hip feel like?" You
Yeah.
know? Um, so it's interesting because I've seen yoga go in these kind of and it's not just two, it's just it's easier for humans to think in binaries, but these two different directions, right? And so this very like esoteric way, the path of the mind, the Upanishadic mysticism, and that is valid. And I will always feel that that is the core of the yoga tradition. And also, there are these people really doing trailblazing work, building bridges between yoga, yoga therapy, physical therapy, behavioral
Yeah.
health, contemplative neuroscience. And I really see myself as kind of straddling both of those worlds. You know, I don't
Sure.
really fit in either one very well. I would love, and this is what I'm actively building with the Wisdom Method Institute, I would love to see yoga, not just protocol or condition specific yoga, but yoga therapeutic interventions given the weight and the depth and the efficacy that those of us that have experienced that power know that they
Yeah.
have, but being applied in the areas where they're most useful. And so where I really see that is because I'm rural and I'm not in like a super well connected, everybody has excellent insurance and yoga studios on every corner. I see yoga therapy as a wonderful bridge, right? Because
Yeah.
people often go to like maybe they get injured, then they go to physical therapy, but then they're kind of stuck after that first 6 weeks. They don't know what to do, right? And then a
Yep.
lot of times they end up re-injuring themselves, right? I'm just using physical therapy, but you could insert
Sure.
like respiration therapy, right? There's so many ways that
Psychiatry. Yeah. Whatever.
exactly, right? And
Yeah.
so people are often given these like really intensive allied health interventions, and that's great. But then it doesn't fix the underlying structural or neurological or psychological or emotional imbalances, let's say, that
Yeah.
created the condition for injury in the first place. And so, where I really see yoga therapy and therapeutic yoga fitting, where I would love to see it going, actively steering the ship there, is to be this like this stopgap in between, you know, okay, allied health can take us so far, but they we know that they don't do well in prevention. We know that they
Right.
that things like health span are just being discussed, right? And yeah, there's a bunch of tech bros talking about biohacking and longevity culture, but please, right? Can we
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
not with the talking heads in the manosphere? Anyway, I feel
Yeah.
like I've said too many words, but
No, I mean, a couple things you've said that I want to highlight. One is that I think the best of us have one foot in the tradition and the other foot in the modern that we're working. And I think
Mm,
that's something we don't get that doesn't get said enough within the industry at large, and specifically in yoga therapy. Like we yoga therapists are kind of told to like pick a team. You know, like
yeah.
are you like the spiritual person, or are
Mhm.
you the person who's going to work on like, rotator cuff
Right.
injuries? And it's there's a somehow like a whole lot in between those two things that we're missing, and I think we have to do both of those things. I think that's very smart, that idea of honoring the tradition and then also trying to figure out where we're going to go yoga therapy specifically, because I mean, respectfully, no one's telling us where to go, so we might as well make it up. Which, if you're entrepreneurial in your spirit, which I suspect you are, I am as well, like that is exciting.
Mm,
But also, I think we need to do that louder because there are a lot of people who are maybe less entrepreneurial who feel lost and betrayed because they've spent tens of thousands of dollars at this point on credentials. And then they're sitting here like, where the hell are we going to go? What are we going to do? How are we going to work?
right. And just to highlight that point and put a pin in it, because yes, they spent all this money on the credential, but guess what? That credential can be snatched away from them anytime, right?
Yes.
As
Yes.
I've just experienced.
Right. Yes.
Not to make it all about me, but yeah, the industry right now is it's set up like a Ponzi scheme, and I won't soften that because it is.
Totally.
It's like buy into this, buy into that, buy into this, buy into that, and at the end you're like, and what do I have here? And it's like you
Yeah.
have nothing, right? You have a veil behind a veil behind a veil and a bunch of illusions. Like the industry did not create the jobs,
Yes.
and not for lack of brilliant, dedicated, servant-hearted entrepreneurs over the years telling these institutions,
Yes.
hey, try this. Hey, do this. Hey, this is, I mean, there are a lot of really smart people advising these institutions that for one reason or another, they didn't choose to follow through. And
Right.
that feels like a failure that I'm not comfortable internalizing for the next generation of yoga therapists,
Right.
having
Yeah.
seen how devastating it's been, for those of us that were early
Yeah.
to the party, if you will. But, you know,
Yeah, you and I have had that conversation in the background because, I mean, so I trained in 2010, so not
Mhm.
far off from you.
Right.
And I just raised my prices. I'm $250 an hour at this
Yeah.
point. And part of why I feel like, A, that I say that out loud so other people can hear it,
Hmm.
and B, that there are so many other people who need to come in behind me who don't have 16 years of experience and got the opportunity to work during the yoga boom of us, which is the 2010s. Like,
Hmm.
we have an obligation, those of us who are, have been here long enough to charge enough money that the entry level for those new people is enough to eat.
Right. Yeah.
Like, we have to be able to say, look, I'm in it for all of us, which means that I'm going to charge a price that I'm uncomfortable with so
Hmm.
that this person can buy groceries.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's interesting that you said that because when I raised my prices in 2014, and I remember talking about it in a 200-hour training, and people were like, "What? How do you charge that much?" And it was 275 an hour.
Yeah.
But it was 275 a session. I do 90-minute sessions, right?
Oh,
And so
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
We'd
So
be
same.
about the same. Yeah.
Yeah, same. And and I made the point that if I am charging like the lowest rate, then how does that communicate to
Yes.
the industry at large, to the public at large, what difference there is between a yoga therapist with 20 years experience or whatever, and a yoga teacher who just graduated with their 500 hour. And
Right.
that's a wonderful level of training to have, but there's still a lot to be learned, right? And in the profession, and that's a gap that I don't see any of the professional organizations filling, like that gap of helping guide the public's understanding of what yoga versus therapeutic yoga versus yoga therapy is and how to rate it like accordingly. And I don't mean like a social metrics rating, but even
Yeah.
like how to value it, right?
Yeah. I mean, the cynic in me, which at this point, now that I'm doing a lot of this journalistic work, I feel myself being more cynical, um, would say that there definitely are both people and institutions that financially benefit from us not speaking that and us not saying, well, a full professional career ladder involves people like you and I are charging, $250, $300 an hour,
Mm,
and people who are coming in charging, what a massage therapist charges, 7 to 60, 70, $80 an hour. And that, like, if we just make everybody feel anxiety and scared, then we can sell them courses and trainings and credentials that make them feel less that way.
right.
Would be the
Right.
cynical thing.
Well,
I
and
mean, at
it's
this point, it's what's happening.
you could call it cynical or you could call it fact-based.
Yeah.
Because
Thanks. You
as,
go.
as we know.
Yeah. I mean, it's true.
And that constant, already it's an industry that is kind of outside of the general professional career ladder, so
Mm.
that the professional organizations are layering on this gatekeeping and inability to be clear. I just look at like, so for example, I have dear friends all over the United States, and in Europe and Australia and New Zealand. Basically, I have friends, internet friends on every continent, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And often they will reach out to me and ask, like, hey, I've got this. Do you know anyone? And I love to be a source of referral. So this happened with a friend in Michigan, and I wanted to help them find a yoga therapist. It was a woman that had just, a friend of a friend, who had just had a baby, and I wanted to help them find a yoga therapist who had training in postpartum, all
Yeah.
manner of suchness, right? Because that's special training.
Yeah.
And even knowing everything that I know and like being connected in all of the industries, I could not find one. I
Mm.
couldn't find someone to
Yeah.
say like, I feel comfortable referring you to this person. And that was a little bit of a wake-up call for me. And I didn't do anything about it, but um it at the same time I was going through some stuff and I had to like find an attorney. And I got connected to an attorney through the bar association, essentially,
Yeah.
right? Like the referral. And it was easy peasy. You call the bar, you say, I need an attorney in this with this specialty, and they're like, okay, $50, and then they give you a list and boom. And it occurred to me then, and that was not the first time, that that would be a wonderful way to structure a jobs board, essentially,
Right.
for yoga,
Yeah.
right? Like it wouldn't be that hard, but it was like one of those thoughts that you have and kind of move on. And I didn't do anything about it until after I wrote that article about losing my C-IAYT.
Yeah. Ooh, I want to talk about that too.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, and I should clarify, I did not lose my credential. I elected not to pay a late fee on top of everything that I had already paid to that organization. I felt it was insult on injury. I protested as such. I actually did not renew my credential back in February of this year because I just felt the organization was, I had never gotten any business from them. Um, I felt like I was supporting them with no support back. I felt a little whiny about it, but I was like, I don't know what I can do except just like send them a protest email. So I
Yeah.
did. I was like, I'm officially protesting this renewal process. I think it's expensive. It's a heavy burden. It was like a nice letter sent to the staff via their website, like a complaint.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't inflammatory. It wasn't like, you guys suck, right? It was just a, hey, longtime member here. I'm seeing the leadership. I'm not seeing a strategy that works for yoga therapists, so I'm choosing not to renew, right? So my credential lapsed. And then, long story, a little less long, I decided I wanted to take the specific protocol that I had written for intimate partner violence survivors and have it tested at the research level, at the university level with a PI. And so I needed my C-IAYT, or I thought, right?
Right.
So I had already done my continuing education for the year. Like I love to learn. I don't know any yoga teacher or yoga therapist who doesn't have like a collection.
Right. We're all so nerdy.
We're so nerdy, right?
Yeah. Truly.
So I'm like scrolling through, look at my courses. What do I want to take now,
Yeah.
And so I ended up landing on, and she won't mind that I'm sharing this because she's outed herself in the group, but two courses with Bo Forbes, who sits on the advisory board of the IAYT,
Yeah.
has presented at several of their conferences, has many credentials, is a
Yes.
leader in our field, and has had several of her courses as APDs. Just so happens the courses that I took, she had not chosen to renew them that year as APDs. So they didn't accept it. They didn't accept my hours for which was like
Mhm.
9 hours. And if you've taken courses in this space, they're not cheap, right? They're like
Right.
anywhere between 100 to 500 per course. So I had taken another course that I was really interested in because it had gotten these rave reviews. It's called The Science of Wellbeing. You can get it on Coursera. It's taught by a Yale doctorate and PsyD.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
heard of it. Yeah.
Yes, like it's a hugely wide no like
It
really
is a
well-known
well-known
course,
course. It is
and
a
it's
well-known course.
changed
Yes.
so many people's lives. And so I wanted to take it because I was really curious, like how is she doing what she's doing like at Yale? Like I've been doing this
Mm.
stuff, like I
Yeah.
other yoga teachers are doing this. How are they teaching it at a university level, right? And so it's free on Coursera. You don't have to pay. I paid so I could get the certificate, right? Because that's the gist. If you want the piece of paper, you pay the 50
Yeah.
bucks or whatever. So I had done that. And then I had done another course, and I won't out this teacher, but I will just say she's a PT. She has a very specific specialty, and she's an instructor in an accredited IAYT yoga therapeutics program. This course was a module in that, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Wait.
those were my continuing education courses, right? Nothing was suspect. Nothing was like my
Yeah.
work or no, right? So they didn't accept any of them. In fact,
What?
yeah, right? Yeah.
I'm sorry. You
Right.
shouldn't
So
laugh.
I'll just let that land. Nope, sorry, these are not approved. They are not APDs. And so again, at this point, I'm like, teensy little bit of annoyance, but I'm not angry. I'm like, okay, well, this is just a miscommunication. They just like
Yeah.
clearly didn't see. So I sent it back with like, I don't understand. This is that, blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, I had been in contact with Bo Forbes, their support person, and was like, they didn't accept this. Do you know why? And anyway, so independently, there was some back channeling, right?
Yeah. Of course. Of course. Yes.
Yeah, there is some back channeling. And eventually it got to the point where I was still waiting in limbo. They were still asking for more stuff. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Mm.
And then I sent them an email and I was like, this is ridiculous, this process. Like, I'm a single mom. I need this for my business. I've already completed this. Like, why is it so hard to get these approved? This shouldn't be this hard. Do y'all need some
Mm.
help? Basically, I was like, do y'all need some help with your systems? Because what?
I'm good at that. Yeah.
Why is this so hard?
Yeah.
And again, like these were polite and courteous emails. It wasn't like that person, right? Uh, long story, a little less long. They still didn't approve it. And so I was like, I'm going to dig into this, right? Because I don't understand why this is happening. And when I say that, they kept asking me to do more work, right? They're like,
Right.
well, what we need from you now is blah, 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 right? And I'm like, no, the burden is already on me already consistently. It's already on the practitioner. This is on y'all, right?
Yeah.
So then because I'm a nerd and I didn't want to be like, they're just persecuting me, poor me, right? Because
Yeah.
that's my first thing is like, this is just a me thing, right?
It's
Um,
personal.
right, it's personal. And then I was like, well, wait, is it? And I went back to that February email that I had sent them where I was protesting like the C-IAYT. And the reply to that email was like, yeah, essentially like, yeah, we know it's been a big thing. We've upset a lot of people. We pulled back, but would you like to, join an advisory board or basically, would you like to come work for us for free and help us, get through this in that email
Mm.
in February? So I was like, well, this is what I'm going to do. And I felt pretty good about it. I was like, because this is what I do in my work as a consultant. I go into organizations that are struggling with their leadership or with their membership or with their fundraising. And I do a full on, not an audit, but I do an assessment of their systems,
Yeah.
communications, outreach, and then I make suggestions, based on my experience in this work. So that's what I did. And it turned into an article about the state of yoga therapy that at the end of which I was really depressed for us as an industry.
Yeah.
Because what the data showed was that most of us working in yoga only earn about $10,000 a year from our yoga
Yeah.
therapy business.
It's
And
brutal.
that's true for me. I know it's true for me. I had to prioritize coaching and consulting because I could not feed two babies on yoga therapy income. And early in my career, I diversified for that reason. So I spent a little while after that article, like responding to a lot of comments that people were grateful that I had written it, that they had similar experiences, that they too let their C-IAYT credential go. Because the end of the story is after I wrote that article, I received a very nice professional letter from someone with an MBA at IAYT, and I won't name who that is. And it was a very like, well, if you were having so much financial hardship, why didn't you just ask not to, why didn't you ask to have us waive the late fee? Because that's where it ended, was they at the end they finally approved my CEs after I wrote the article, but then they were like, and now you owe us $55 for a late fee. And I was like, no, no, I don't. No. This is gatekeeping at the highest level, and I've just done a full audit of your organization. And no, I don't owe you any more money. In fact, you all owe us money, which I didn't say. Yes, and then I was told to remove the C-IAYT credential from my name and all of my websites, and then they kicked me out of the group. So that's how that ended.
Okay. So this has been a very therapeutic story for me, Kelly. I'm just
Yes,
going
I
to tell
hope
you.
it is for everyone
I'm just going
listening.
to tell you. I mean, because I have publicly, I realize also, I acknowledge that I'm a pain in the ass, and I am now a very public pain in the ass. So when I say things, people hear them. I let my C-IAYT lapse last year
Mm.
because, to be frank, I don't need it. Like you just, I just don't need it. I'm still a yoga therapist. I still, see clients. I don't need it. I have been lucky in my yoga therapy career. I realize I'm probably the exception. Yoga therapy kept my studio open during COVID. You
Yeah.
know, I've been very lucky. I think that's part just like timing and where I lived. And I live, this is going to be a weird story, but I live in the rural Midwest of the United States. And farmers don't like standard anything. Like farmers love our shit. Like they do. Everybody doesn't think that's true, but like farmers can't hold a normal conversation to save their lives, and neither can we. So it works out just fine.
You
I
speak
see
each other's language.
right, yeah. Like I see farmers, I see military people. It's all like the oddball people come and do yoga therapy because they don't want to have a traditional like medical relationship. Great, but I had this moment when I wrote the Yoga Alliance article where I also went through the 990s of the IAYT. And a lot of people asked me, why didn't you include International Association of Yoga Therapists? And I felt bad because I realized how much money they lost between 2024 and 2025, in large part because people like me were speaking out about that Q credential.
I don't think it was because of that. I think it's because they more than doubled their executive pay at that time and haven't done any fundraising for at least the last 5 years, according to their
Yeah.
990s.
It's just, I had this moment where I was like, oh, that probably, like give them a sec. I feel like their new executive like is just been given something that it was designed to fail, and she's going to be the person on the sinking ship. And I feel very badly about it.
Yeah.
Um, but really, I feel less bad now is what I'm saying. That's the conclusion I've reached circularly, is that fuck them.
Yeah.
like like at some point you have to do your job or we're
Yeah.
just going to stop giving you money.
Yeah, and I think that's when I dug into the data and I saw like because I'm a nerd in case you're all listening, in
We've
case you're all
established, yeah.
like numbers and charts, they literally do something to my soul. Like I just am
Same.
like,
Same girl,
yes,
same.
And yeah, people that take my trainings, they'll be like, wow, I did not expect there to be so many charts. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I loved good charts.
Yeah. Let me talk to you about a spreadsheet. Hold
Right?
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me explain my love affair with Excel. But no. So when I like went down that rabbit hole, I was like, okay, this right because it's not about me. It's like, okay, no, I'm feeling personally attacked, but this is not personal, right? This was a form letter that they sent me that they're sending out to a bunch of other people. And the comments that I received after I posted that article confirmed it, like
Yeah.
they're just they're not doing their job, or in other
Yep.
words, their mission is misaligned. And that's a critical thing for a nonprofit. It really is a critical thing. Um, I think people maybe don't understand how important that is for the nonprofit world when their
Yeah.
mission misaligned. That's they're on the hook for a lot of stuff right there. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I just didn't, after I wrote that article, I was like, people are gonna think I'm the angry girl. But it's not that. I just when there's like an intractable problem that I can't think my way through, I can't let it go. Like it deprives me of sleep. And so for for the next week after that, from like 3:30 a.m. to like 5 a.m., I'm like, what am I gonna do? During my meditation time. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what am I gonna do about this? Right? Like, what are you gonna do about it? So I went back to that idea that I had about the bar association and how lovely that model was. And to be fair, this was an idea that um, I know I was part of it. It probably wasn't only me that was handed to the Yoga Alliance back in 2013 and 2014. I was on a committee, the Studio and Schools Committee, and then there was a Business of Yoga conference planning committee. There were a lot of really intelligent folks in the yoga business entrepreneur space that were saying, hey, we need a better way to connect the public, right? Because Yoga Alliance has that directory, but does the general public know the difference? No.
And they don't care.
And
They
they
don't
don't
care.
care, right?
Yeah.
What they do care about is the problems they have, right? And so
Yes.
my idea, and I mocked this up in a weekend and it's fully in beta, and I am not interested in like being the person who runs it all. But I was like, I'm just going to build this thing. So I built this mock-up directory of yoga teachers, hire.yoga, hire.yoga. And essentially, it's built to do just that. The public can go there. It's front facing. They can see a list of specialties. There are just a few there, like 5 there right now, but surely there will be more added. They can search by location or virtual only. They can search at some point, this is being added, by whether or not the practitioner takes insurance or if they only do co-pay or individual pay, right? And then on there, there is also kind of a salary. I'm not going to say it's a guideline, right? It's a salary
Yeah.
guideline that just gives different categories for different level of trainings. It unpacks some of the credentials so people know what
Yeah.
that means, right? And then importantly, right, on the other side, yoga teachers can add their directory space. On the other side, there's someone, right now it's just this human, hopefully that will change, that will go and verify their credentials, including insurance, right? And so that's something that hasn't been done before. So verification of the credentials, of insurance, of um, everyone in the directory needs to sign the disclosure, DEIA agreement, and the lineage and abuse disclosure, because, again, that's a huge. Can we just
Yes.
talk about the legacy of abuse in yoga and how people just want to stick their heads in the sand? It's not cool, right? We got to call
Right.
people out, and so that's important to me as a trauma survivor. It's important for anyone with a trauma history to know that they're going to be entering into a relationship with someone that's not going to further exploit their vulnerabilities, right?
Yeah.
So that's up there. And then there's also a research board. So you can look at the current research that's happening in the yoga world. The public can see it too, right? And then they're grounded in the actual data, right? And that I think is, again, this is it's a mock-up in beta. You can add your directory listing anytime. I approve them once a week. I also, because I know what it takes to run something like this, I put up a job board with the actual roles that will be required to keep this project going. Um, because what I'd love for it to turn into, like in a perfect world in my utopia, is a place that democratizes some equity in health and tech and allows the yoga teachers and the yoga therapists, the yoga professionals themselves to own their equity, right? And so that could evolve in the future. But right now, the organizations that are not supporting us are unfortunately, um, I see the potential for further exploitation coming down the line with AI
Mm.
integrations.
Yeah.
And so it felt like something just got me out of bed and was like, you need to do this now. And I don't, usually when things like that, when I get those
Right.
messages, I just do, right?
Right.
So,
There's so what you just said there about the potential of further exploitation. I feel like what's worth speaking to, and I feel like you can speak to this as well, is I don't to give grace to the organizations, nobody saw how yoga was going to boom in the 2010s. Like that just was an unpredictable thing.
sure.
Who would have known that all of us in our weird, like stretchy unitards in 1997 were going to build this like tens of billions of dollars worth of business in like literally 12 to 15 years, if we're being
Right.
generous, most of it happening in 10.
Hmm.
And so I understand being behind because nobody saw this coming.
Right.
But why the hell are we always behind still? Like
Yeah.
at some point, just like take a weekend and catch up. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like get everybody together and figure out how we're going to catch up because, yeah, now the conversation is about how we're going to be played out of the market during AI and tech and all
Yeah.
those other things.
Yeah.
And to what degree what we do can't be replaced by tech and what can be replaced by tech, where there's an ethical gray area for all of us
Mm.
right now. Um, I understand very clearly there are a lot of people listening in the yoga space who are very anti AI. I love you. I see you. I hear you. I also care about the environment. And I want us to be incredibly suspicious of that dialogue happening in the public space because AI is something that can level the playing field for a lot of people. And one way for the elite to hoard that ability is to convince all the rest of us that it doesn't matter. So
Right.
just be suspicious. I love
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I think that's it's such a like there's so many fine points to the argument because yeah, like I am a hippie, right? I don't wear shoes if I can help it. Like I pick up snakes, I garden, I eat as
Yeah,
much of
yeah.
my food as possible. I, swore off goods in China in college. Like I am a hippie, right? Baptized my ex-boyfriend's hunting hunting things with Nag Champa and
Yeah,
Buddhist
yeah, yeah.
prayers, right? Okay. And also, tech is not going anywhere. And having equity in tech that we can control as a group, as mindful, compassionate, forward-thinking individuals, I say is a much more powerful position than handing over our likenesses, our intellectual property, our
Mhm.
voices, our avatars to the AI companies. And these corporations these organizations that govern yoga, they're already in conversations with AI consultants and companies. So if you don't know that already, you need to know that. Like it is
Yeah,
happening. And I'm not saying, like hire.yoga is whatever, AI, whatever. It's not. It's just it could be a space for us to have a separate location to house additional AI infrastructure in the yoga and contemplative space that we control, right?
yeah,
And I think that's powerful because it brings the ethics back into the tech. And given that most tech companies are firing their ethicists at this point,
yes.
it behooves us all to fill that gap in whatever way we can.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Now we're on a tangent I didn't expect, so I'm happy for it. But let's talk about AI for a second. How do you see it going in the yoga space? I will summarize very quickly what I saw in 2025 was that immediately you were seeing places replace physical teachers on videos with AI teachers.
Mhm.
Like retirement communities had AI yoga classes and things like that. There was a big NPR thing about that in
Mhm.
2025.
It's
But
coming
they're
for us all.
they're not doing that anymore. Like a lot of those places have since pulled back that AI usage and said, okay, yoga is a relational sort of thing. We're looking for human connection.
That's good. That's good.
How do we see realistically the good, the bad, the ugly of AI coming into our industry.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna out myself and say that I worked in AI from 2023 to 2024 late, and I did not engage with any AI tools during that time and after because it terrified me, like at an existential
Mm.
level. However, and also, right? And also, I've mentioned that part of my mission in yoga is bringing accessible interventions to survivors of intimate partner violence.
Mhm.
That's $1 trillion health gap, even in the United States. And so part of that is I've developed an app, and I AI avatared myself for that app because I want every woman with a cell phone, whether they're in a shelter or a dangerous home environment, to be able to have access to yoga nidra tools that quite literally saved my life.
Yeah.
Now, does that make me like evil on the AI spectrum? I don't know. But what I do know is that I have an ethical use case. I'm also separately building research on gender bias in AI. So I engage with the models specifically to evaluate their gender bias, and that those data are separate and will be shared separately. But I think in terms of the evolution, so Tara Brach avatared herself. All of her teachings are going to be delivered by her avatar. Where I see it, where I see it in the immediate future happening is as a supplement to yoga therapeutic support, right? In between session support, you have an AI avatar of yourself. Whether or not that avatar earns income, who knows, right? And
Right.
if that avatar earns income, right? Because it already is. If you have videos on YouTube or audios or anything on Meta, you've already been stolen, right? You've already been avatared somewhere. And
Yes.
and now that content is being quote AI generated as slop somewhere else, and someone else is paying for it, right? So already the great theft has happened. Now it's what do we do about it? And those of us
Yep.
that have been sharing our images, our intellectual property, our insights, our wisdom on the internet since like literally 2007 over here, like all of it was taken from us. And
Yeah.
any creative out there that had any intellectual property, it was all stolen, right? They called it training data, but it was stolen intellectual property, right?
Yes.
So, so presuming that at some point the tech companies are going to stop stealing from us, to stop exploiting us, is, well, foolish.
Yes.
And again, when as you did with Yoga Alliance and as I did with IAYT, looking into the history, the financial history, it seems to show a similar pattern, right? So I personally didn't feel it was wise to wait around for them to come up with a solution for AI use. So I separately have created what I feel is a bioethical use case for AI in education, yoga education. Now,
Yeah.
whether everyone agrees with me, well, not everyone's going to agree with me, right? Totally fine. I love that we can have different ideas about this and come together and debate because that's how we make things better. We don't
Yeah.
make things better by saying you're wrong, I'm right, right? That gets nowhere, right? That gets us
No.
absolutely nowhere. What does get us somewhere is, okay, where would it feel comfortable to engage with an AI avatar in a yoga space, right? I can't tell you how many tongue-in-cheek times my students had told me, if I could just have a little Kelly in my pocket,
Totally.
right? And if you're
Yes.
a yoga teacher, like you get that, right? And
Yeah.
so what would it be like? Honestly, when I avatared myself for the app, it was a little disconcerting and a little too dissociating. I did not like it. Right? I don't
I don't know that I would either.
I don't want my avatar telling
Mhm.
me what to do, right? I have enough I have enough self-conflict.
Same.
However, um, again, I am actively attempting to solve a $1 trillion public health crisis using every tool available
Yeah.
at my disposal. And that's something that I've tried to do in my yoga therapeutics career for the last 10 years with, varying levels of success because accessibility, meeting people. The
Mm.
population I want to work with often cannot make it to a group class, or it's not safe, or
Right.
there are compliance issues, there are transportation issues, there are childcare issues. So all of these things, I think when we just like throw the baby out with the bathwater, we miss the opportunity to develop concrete solutions to these problems that the world has. And it deprives the world of our wisdom, like
Yeah.
when the world needs us the most, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I see like AI for me, just to say my perspective is I'm about decentralizing power, right? That
Mm.
is just redistributing wealth and power amongst the people. I'm a human person who believes in our collective, a collectivist. So the idea that we're going to stop AI by opting out just means that those in power will just have the AI and we won't.
Right.
And that just is like, it's not going to go away. It's just going to be more and more siloed into fewer and fewer people who have access to that technology.
Right.
And that's just silly. We shouldn't do that. It's like this sort of common cultural discussion about how kids shouldn't go to college. We don't need a college education anymore. What are you saying? All evidence, all evidence points towards the fact that education and access to things like tech absolutely levels the playing field.
Mm,
Why the devil would we not want to do that? We
mm,
can figure out the problem of doing that more ethically. That just seems like what do you mean? And then being mean at small businesses who use AI for like whatever their signs are, or I mean, for goodness sakes, the reason why Nike doesn't do that is because they can afford to hire people to do it for them. Your
yes.
local like taqueria can't afford to do that, so they
Mm.
like used AI.
Yeah, it's like it reminds me because again, I feel ancient by saying this, but like I started my first business before the internet was like a thing. Like it was
Yeah,
around, right?
yeah,
But I mean, okay, technically not my first business because my first business was cleaning houses, but my first my first location-based business, my yoga studio. And I remember like around that time starting a YouTube channel
yeah,
because I needed to rank higher on Google, right? That was the only reason I
right.
started a YouTube channel was so local people could find my actual yoga studio. But even then, it was like, well, how are you going to teach people on YouTube? You can't just, the student has to be ready. They have to be in front of you, right? And so how
Yeah,
many of us would be like, well, a video class isn't authentic now? We wouldn't say that,
right.
right? We
Some people
wouldn't.
would. Some
Some
people would
some
and
people,
do.
right? I mean, but the majority, right? And COVID actually pushed us closer to that, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it. But my first teacher was not a real live person. I mean, he was a real live person, but my first teacher was Rodney Yee on the DVDs at the local Walmart because that's like all I could get.
Yoga burn.
Yeah. Oh no, mine was back care because I had
Oh, okay.
such horrible back pain from anyway, hypermobility, years of doing way too many gymnastics and running and stuff. So yeah, I was like all about the back care.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out Rodney Yee and Patricia Walden. We loved your videos back in the
Yes.
day.
Yes. And then also like I learned about Ayurveda and healed myself in part from many years of disordered eating through a book. Ayurveda, The Science of Life, that slender book
Yeah,
that Dr. Vasant Lad wrote. And I
yeah,
wonder, like, did he get any flack from his peers when he wrote that for a Western audience?
yeah.
And so these are the things that I think of because again, like I'm sort of outside yoga culture, right? Like I had a studio during that boom, but it was in a town that was filled with like cowboys and Christians, right? And a lot of them were like, we don't know if we can say namaste because we're Christian. And I was like, okay, just say
That's
amen,
fine.
right?
Say good night.
We don't know if we can, oh, okay, just say home, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was like, I guess I have a different perspective being kind of on the outside of that and knowing that it was always a difficult sell for the students that came to my class, right? I always had to be accommodating of certain biases. And AI feels a little bit like that, like there is
Yeah.
this level of accessibility, which also means there's going to be a lot of slop out there, right? But the slop doesn't negate the potential power of the medium. But I also want to bring that home because it is not a tool. This is a medium, and it is a
Yeah.
medium for mind control. And that I think is what people do not understand. And that is what, like, working in AI with a philosophy background was what I saw. I'm like, okay, so this is
Mm.
not going to be good for humanity. And on that level, we're right to be terrified, right? We're right
Right.
to be terrified about the environmental impact. We're right to be terrified about the impact on cognition, but that doesn't mean we give up, right? And let the machine roll over us. It means we take a stand, right?
Right.
And have our viewpoint clear.
Okay, you said something I want to pull at. This is it's a little bit of a subject change, but it's an interesting one because not very many people come on this podcast who live or have lived in a deeply red state or a place where you don't have a lot of typical yoga people. Like I see a lot of people from Colorado and, the East Coast and in
Yeah,
California.
this is not that.
Yeah, people in the Chicagoland area. And then I'm like, yeah, but I think there is an advantage as a yoga professional to being able to sit in a room. For me, I used to teach yoga at a place where there were livestock auctions. Like,
Oh,
so
okay.
people were like selling cows and goats, and then they would leave and somebody would have a push broom. It wasn't even clean floors, and we would come in and do yoga deep in rural country,
Yeah.
and to be able to communicate what we do to people who are really not looking for your like chakra crystal by the moon kind of stuff
Hmm.
is, I think, underrated.
It is. It's an underrated skill to be
Yeah.
able to communicate to people who think differently than you
Yeah.
and to make connections across ideological divides. But I've had a lot of training at that. I got, at 5 years old, I discovered the problem of evil in Sunday school and got promptly sent to the pastor's office where he explained evangelism to me. And I was like, no.
Oh.
That does not solve it. You're wrong. Jesus would not let all those babies in Africa die, right?
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't sound right, sir. Have you read your book?
Right. I'm like, have you read the Bible? Jesus
Yeah,
is
yeah.
love, dude. Yeah, so I am post-evangelical. I am not a Christian. I think Jesus was a cool dude. Love the Gnostic Gospels, love, the actual message, but definitely not a Christian, definitely surrounded by them, like everywhere, right?
Mm.
Conservatives, almost my entire family voted for Trump twice. Um, yeah, even with all, yeah. So it's been a challenge, and but again, I think you put a point on it. It's a skill, and
Yeah.
it's a skill that's underrated because it's much easier to write someone off and be like, "You're wrong, I'm right." But having had that happen to me so much as kind of a heretical post-Christian, I was
Yeah.
like, nope, I'm not going to do that because I know how it feels. And there is a way through.
I feel like it makes you better at the work too. I've also said that about teaching kids, old folks, and people in addiction recovery centers
Mm,
to put yourself in front of any group of people that is unafraid to tell you what they think of you
mm.
makes you better at your work. And I would imagine that cowboys would be the same way.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. And it was, like of course I had like the demographic. I worked with a lot of healthcare workers because my studio was right down the street from the hospital. So, surgeons and physicians and nurses and PTs but almost all of them were like going to church on Sunday too,
Yeah.
So walking that line between like we're here to care for our bodies, we're not here to because there was a lot of concern. We're not here to worship false gods, right? And so I don't know many yoga teachers that have to be like that clear about what we're doing. No.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. After we stop recording, I'll tell you a story about a library that I almost got kicked out of for that. Yeah.
Yeah, but my first yoga class after really after I finished my graduate degree, and then I ended up coming back to my hometown thinking it was just going to be a blip, and then I was going to move to Asheville. I taught out of my parents' church because there was like nowhere, there wasn't a space, and I needed a space that was zoned for community. And so it just ended up that I had worked at the church-run thrift shop a few years prior, helping them with their vintage stuff. And so I knew the folks who were in charge of the space, and I was like, "Hey, can I do this here?" And they were like, "Yeah, but maybe don't call it yoga." I was like, "Okay, what do you want me to call it?" They were like, "How about sit and stretch?" I was like, "Okay, cool." So, that's how my yoga studio was born, in a church,
Yeah.
teaching sit and stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate this like conversation in part because I do think some of us with the strongest business and business skills, like it teaches us sort of that anti-fragility of not
Mm.
having everything to be perfect, and you can't afford what good, bad, or otherwise I'm going to label as moral puritanicalism that we often have in the yoga space of it has to be just perfect or it's not, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
When you're interacting in spaces with a bunch of people who don't think the same way you think, it forces you to be much more flexible in your business and your business offerings. I think that's good for us. That's really
Yeah.
good for us.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, we were kind of like paving the way for all of the
Right.
goat yoga, and, and like the Christian yoga. And like another time, I was looking for wood floors, so I ended up booking the local casino because they had
Oh,
gorgeous wood floors,
yeah.
and a nice little stage that I could like demonstrate on, or have a demonstrator up there. It was, yeah.
I always wonder why we're so mad about that. Like there
Yeah.
is this like we're super mad about those goats. I
Yeah.
think even still.
I'm mad about the goats only. I'm like, did the goats ask for that? How did you really get their consent? That's my only issue with it. Yeah.
And I'm very Midwestern practical. Also a single mom. You cannot afford to be a single mother and not be practical. And I'm just
Exactly.
like, goats eat your stuff. Why would I put my stuff there?
Right.
Have you ever met a goat?
Yeah,
Like this
they're
is me just like,
adorable, and then
you
they
don't
poop
know
on you.
about goats? People use them here to mow their lawns. What are you
Yes.
saying?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, total random tangent, but I once wanted to develop a landscaping business and call it Scapegoat.
Oh, that's a great name.
You know.
Somebody out there listening.
Somebody out there, you can have
That
it unless somebody's already taken it, but Scapegoat. Wouldn't that be just
that's a
fantastic
that's a
branding?
great name. Oh. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up, and here's what I want. That we're gonna shift back to our mutual love of organizations.
Mm.
Let's talk about yoga therapy, since this is where we're both deeply steeped in. If we're going to give one message to the International Association of Yoga Therapists or their leadership, or more likely their board members, what do we want to tell them besides get your shit together, which like
Mhm.
is valid, but be more specific than that.
Yeah, I mean, what I saw from the outside as like if I was coming in as a consultant, the first thing that I would tell them is like, where's the fundraising? Like, why are you not fundraising specifically for jobs creation? Like, where are the
Right.
bridges being built between those graduating and those needing mentors and those needing like support with placement, right? Job placement is supposed to be part of the university track, right? You go to university, you get this master's degree, and then ideally, there's going to be some sort of alumni association or like career counseling or support. And not that they're going to hold your hand, but they're going to guide you in a
Yeah.
certain way. And that has not, I don't see that reflected in the dollars there. Yeah, so that's something that I would love to see. The other thing is like, and I'll volunteer myself for this. Like, I have created hire.yoga directory, just me and my
Yeah.
little single mom summer over here on a weekend, right? Help me or I'll help you, right?
Yeah.
I have decided, I've elected myself as the person who wants to create the jobs in yoga therapy. Like, what do you need from me to make that happen? Because I'm here and I'm volunteering myself. I'd love to be paid this time. Thank you, IAYT, because I've given a lot of very free work. However, I'm saying to the yoga community, like hire.yoga exists. I am going to put effort behind it. I don't need to be attached to it. It's not about me. It's about making the jobs available and building those bridges between the public, the practitioners, and the research community.
Yeah. Okay. We love that. And also, IAYT, if you're listening, if you don't hire Kellie, I would bet $1 bazillion. I know another brand new organization on the block that would be very interested in something like this. They're super into tech too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Awesome. Hmm.
like, yeah, we got to do something
Yeah,
different.
I think you nailed it when you said like the collective is where we're at. And I think there's a lot of lip service paid to that by these organizations, but I don't believe that the action is there.
No,
So,
no,
if you want somebody to do something, ask a busy person. No one busier than single moms.
for
So,
real.
right?
Yeah, for real, for real. All right, Kellie, tell everybody where to find you.
Yes. So I'm like everywhere on the interwebs. If you want to read my nerdy essays, you can go over to kellieadkins.com. That's KellieAdkins.com, just to mess with your spell check every single time. And then if you want to learn more about my Yoga Research Institute or my yoga therapeutic protocols or my work with intimate partner violence survivors and the forthcoming app, you can check out thewisdommethod.com, thewisdommethod.com. And what else? Hire.yoga, hire.yoga. If you want to check out the directory and just see it in beta and see the big, beautiful thing that it could become, please feel free to get involved. I'm very easy to find on the interwebs. Yeah, I think those are the big ones.
Amazing. Thank you for this conversation. It was delightful. I didn't expect to laugh this much. This is great.
Oh, good. Good.
Thank you so much for this chat, Kellie. Up next week, I have an interview with a repeat guest, Deb Flashenberg. Deb and I get into discussing the idea of people using scripts for their work versus learning how to teach without one. Deb sees a lot more people looking for a script that they can recite as they teach, so she and I dive into this topic and see where we land. Until then, let's go get to work, and I will catch you around the water cooler next time.